Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the DLLS Dallas Stars Podcast, NHL News and Notes. Sean Shapiro, Craig Ludwig, myself, Owen Newkirk. We start with some fun post-game after the Philadelphia-Carolina game Tuesday night. Of course, it's John Tortorella.
You said this morning you wanted to see progress in certain areas. Did you see enough of that tonight?
No.
As far as guys getting off the schneid, you get one, Frosty gets a bounce, Tip gets one. At least good to see them get going.
Yep.
What was it that you didn't think was
I'm not going to dissect it.
Thoughts on Cole and Sauce play today?
Okay.
You good?
Thanks.
Well, you got a lot out of that one. You know, Sean, you always talk about you feel like the scrums are not the best place to mine golden quotes from, for a writing perspective. You're not getting a whole lot from that.
Yeah, that's credit to, I'm drawing a complete blank on her name, but the sound of the voice, I believe it was the beat writer for the Inquirer for the Flyers. I believe that was her who tried to ask the question of like, what didn't work out well. And he said, I'm not going to dissect it. So that right there was the full line of any follow-up question right now is completely pointless. Tortorella is a really interesting character in this league for many reasons, because it's funny to see this. For me, it's really funny to see kind of this clip and this reputation and everything like that he has. And it is how he can be a bit of a curmudgeon and everything like that. But at the same time, this is a guy who this season in Philadelphia, watch what's happening with Michkov right now. Like Matvei Michkov is coming in and having a great year. And for all of the worry of is Torts going to ruin this young Russian player, there's been a good marriage there already. So Torts is I've been in this situation with pressers before. I've spoken to Torts several times in my career. There are some times where it's just you're just there to it's a 1 minute formality like this one was, or even less, and you just move on.
There seems to be two sides to him. Yeah, because we all know what he did with the Johnny Gaudreau family and bringing the dad on the ice and feeling that may help in some crazy way, to try to help heal, get through that process. He gives a ton of his time for animals and, all those kind of things. So, Sean, is there, I think there is in the playoffs, is there any kind of fining system that if coaches don't come out in regular season that they can get fined? Because wasn't there something about that in the playoffs? At playoff time, they needed a quote from the coaches?
It is within the league rules where players and coaches have to be available after regular season games as well. So there is that's just the playoff is when it becomes a little bit more amplified and people handle all, and it becomes more notable. But yes, there is a rule in the regular season that the head coach, or at least a representative from the coaching staff, is available after the game, and as well as players. So he is technically fulfilling requirements by being there. He's not going Marshawn Lynch, I'm just here so I won't get fined. He's just doing the John Tortorella version of it.
Well, and he's done some great interviews. I mean, post-game interviews. He's done some great ones it really gives you a look into, usually it's when they win, or at least have a pretty good game, but he gives you a good look inside of what he saw from his team and his players in the game.
I think, and I've had a chance to interview him a few times, especially when the Stars and the Columbus Blue Jackets were in the same division in that shortened season. What was it, 56 games they played the year after the bubble playoff, or the season after the bubble playoff. And he loves to teach hockey. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he has very strong opinions, as we know. And if you ask things the right way, you get wonderful answers. In fact, I asked him about a game against the Stars where they had the lead, and I asked him if he, down the stretch, the Stars started to surge, if he had to resist, because he didn't use his timeout. And it actually worked out. They withheld the Stars push, got an empty net goal, and won the game. And I got John Tortorella to admit with a smile, he goes, I almost peed my pants on the bench. And it made everybody laugh, and it was a great quote. I just think he burns hot and cold emotionally. I think that he has such a passion for it. And I'm not saying that how he handles it is good or bad, but I just think that if the game is a loss, and particularly frustrating one, and their loss to Carolina on Tuesday night had to have been very frustrating because I don't think Carolina was all that good, but they found a way to win the game. And I just wonder if he just emotionally feels those more.
Well, Sean, and you mentioned it too. When you guys say you've had an opportunity to, interview him and things like that, is it in a scrum or is it one-on-one? And is he different if it's just a one-on-one thing?
It's, I mean, to me, one of the biggest things I hate, 90% of the interviews I ever use in a story are you won't see on camera somewhere. I think the TV camera changes everything, right? Like so much of the TV, once the TV camera is there, and whether it's, even if it's just for a social media clip or whatever, it changes the aspect of this is now a performance, right? If this is just John Tortorella and a couple writers without TV cameras there, he's probably a little bit more forthcoming, a little bit more honest, but the TV camera has changed what the post-game media availability is. Like I believe that one of my piece of advice, if anyone's listening to this show and ever wants to go and crazily wants to go into this field that I'm in, if you see a TV camera go and talk to a player on one side of the room, walk to the other side of the room and talk to the guy that's not being bothered by the camera. That's my go-to, literally. And so, like, I've had great conversations with Tortorella in less hectic, chaotic moments where sometimes there might have been a TV camera there, but in general, it hasn't been this, the lights on, we're talking about the game. Like I had a conversation with him last season about, he talked about how he felt like the game was dumber right now. The NHL was a dumber game. And I asked, just very curious, I asked just legitimately, like, why do you think that? And he gave a really good answer about how young players get to come into the league earlier now before they've played the mistakes out of their game the way that you see they used to be. Like, right, Luds, you know this, when you came into the NHL, you had to play the mistakes out of your game typically in the American League before a coach could ever trust you. And now, because of partially salary cap, partially GMs trying to push younger, more skilled players like quicker, sometimes guys get to come in and then the coaches have to coach out some of those mistakes when they're 22, 23 in the NHL right now. So that was a really great, insightful conversation with Tortorella on it. And that's who he is. I mean, the other thing that I always laugh at too, because people will sometimes think he's this guy who's lost touch or whatever, because they'll see a clip like that. It's also, when you've been in the coaching in the NHL as long as he has, I mean, there are he has, to give him credit, he is someone who has his view of the game and has been willing to think outside the box. Like I go back to, I laugh, like I always look up like this story about Torts where there was in 95. So you know the rule, how if you pull the goalie in overtime and you lose, you don't get the point in the standings. So like we saw that last year, the Wild did it last year, right? Like I think it was the Minnesota tried it and then they lost
right at the very end of the season.
Yeah, and so they didn't get the loser point. That rule goes back to 95 when Torts is coaching in the AHL, and I think he was coaching Rochester at the time, and it was a game where I can't remember the exact schematics of the standings, but basically he just pulled his goalie in overtime. His team lost, and they still got the loser point. And then the AHL made the rule change literally 24 hours later because of how he looked at it. So this all connects back to I think there are so many things about Tortorella that sometimes we get so caught up on these 25-second clips that we sometimes forget about so much of the other stuff. You can be brash about it. You can be critical of things. I've been critical of him for other things, but you can't just boil him down to these 25-second clips at times.
Hey, fun fact.
I'm listening.
I never played the minors.
No?
No.
Good for you.
Well, you ironed your mistakes out at North Dakota, didn't you?
Yeah. Hey, that's that education in North Dakota.
Neither did Tyler Sagan. Call back to our show today. All right, some quick hitters around the league. Scary scene in St. Louis last night. Dylan Holloway was taken off the bench on a stretcher during the first period of last night's, or this would be Tuesday night's game between the Blues and the Lightning at Enterprise Center. He was hit in the neck by a puck. It was a Nick Paul shot that deflected off his teammate Jordan Kyrou's stick. That was Holloway's teammate. He went to the bench, then was attended to by the medical staff. and then they put him on a stretcher, and the team later announced he was in stable condition, being transported to the hospital for further monitoring. The good news is that we have an update today. He's back at the rink, and he's hoping to play Thursday, which is maybe getting a little ahead of things. The doctor said 24 hours, no activity, then they'll see. But basically, they said he was struck on the vagus nerve, V-A-G-U-S, or vagus, I don't know how to pronounce that, in his neck area. He was lightheaded. He says he doesn't really remember getting to the bench, and he doesn't remember being stretchered to the ambulance, and that he was getting regular updates from his mom with the game score of that Blues Lightning game. So really good to see that he's okay. And I think, look, we've seen some really nasty things during games. Obviously, Rich Peverly comes to mind, but lots of others in the course of history. I think that the NHL medical staffs have really evolved in a big way over the course of having people close by and ready to have rapid responses.
Yeah, and because of that, it really has into all the other rinks around, the U.S. and Canada. I mean, having the defibrillators and everything on hand, and they're underneath the benches now, and because it happens in men's league games and kids games and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, it was scary. I remember when I had just changed over to that, and the trainer was standing with him on the bench and kind of holding him behind his throat. And I guess it was to probably keep him from moving, and they didn't know exactly what it was. But he apparently said he had a hard time breathing. I kind of thought maybe is he trying to open up his windpipe or something like that to breathe. So the good news is that he thinks he can play again, and you got through this.
I was in a bus accident I was with the Albany River Rats back in 2009, and one of our players is the defenseman who played time in the NHL with the Carolina Hurricanes. His name was Casey Borer, and Casey broke his neck in that crash, and I'll never forget him. We were on the the median of this I-90, Interstate 90 in Western Massachusetts, and he was like holding his head. He couldn't keep his head up under his own power. He was sort of leaning down. He had it resting on stuff. And so watching the trainer hold him almost reminded me of that. I was wondering if there was something broken. He lost the strength of his neck muscles for his head. I guess it was more about the pulse and the breathing and stuff, but scary scenes there. So it's good to see that he's okay. On a more positive note, Sean, do you know the only two pairs of teammates before last night that have opened the season with at least a 13-game point streak to start the year?
Oh, geez.
And I'll give you a hint. They are both duos of Boston Bruins.
Well, now you have our producer thinking.
I know.
Yeah.
So last night, Nate McKinnon had a 5-assist game, tying the Colorado Avalanche. I say last night, Tuesday night, tying the single-game franchise record for most assists in a game, and he extended his season-opening point streak to 13. They beat Seattle 6-3. Cale Makar also extended his point streak to 13. He left due to an injury, by the way, in that game, Makar. They are the first non-Bruins teammates in NHL history to have matching 13-game point streaks to open the season. The first group was Bobby Orr.
I was going to say Bobby Orr had to be in it.
Phil Esposito.
Yeah. Okay.
They had matching 15-game season-opening point streaks, 1973-74.
Was in one of these?
The others were in 92-93. Dmitry Kvartalnov and Joe Juneau each had 14-game point streaks to open the season. And I thought that was amazing that was that few. But, I mean, boy, the Avalanche have not had a great start to the season, but those two guys have really piled up points, as they seem to always do.
I was not expecting a Joe Juneau reference today, so that's I didn't have that at the bingo card today. So
amazingly,
McKinnon's had like 9 of those 5-point night games,
which, by the way, I believe is second only to
guessing the great one,
Wayne Gretzky. I think he had something like 11 of those. I looked at it this morning, didn't write it down, of course, but he's now leading the NHL in scoring. He's leapt up with that 5-point game. He has 25 points. As of our recording this on Wednesday afternoon. And, he's pretty
and
good.
And that's a team that's struggling, right?
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Well,
so
they need a goalie. They need to trade for a goalie.
Struggle
That's
away.
What they need to do.
Avs, you just keep struggling away.
Speaking of goalies, Vitek Vanacek had a career-high 49 saves, and he had an assist, Sean, in an overtime win for the San Jose Sharks. They beat the Columbus Blue Jackets. How about this? The game-winning goal was basically Alexander Wenberg going coast to coast. So I don't know if it's the Ben Bishop 3/4 zone stretch pass that you think of when you get an assist, but as a goalie, you'll take it, right?
Well, goalie assists aren't super reflective of actual puck handling ability. The Stars' all-time assist leader for goalie assists is Kari Lehtonen. And so if you think about Kari having more points than Ben Bishop in his career as well, but always fun, and I'm sure a lot of people, that was the biggest event on Tuesday night, right? San Jose Columbus. So
obviously, two more really quick ones for you. Matthew Coronado scored 2 times. Luddy, did you watch this one? Because on Tuesday night, the Montreal Canadiens were winning the hockey game. Coronado scored the game-tying goal with just less than 3 minutes to go in regulation. They go to 3-on-3 overtime, and he, from the right wing of the center circle, busts in, gets the puck, goes in, and snipes one over the glove, and suddenly it's over. His second goal, Flames win. It's their third period comeback of the season, which is the most in the NHL so far this year. And he scored 7 seconds in, which tied for the second fastest overtime goal in NHL history. 6 different players have scored in 6 seconds.
Not surprising. It was against who?
The Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, not going well there.
No?
No. They don't make the playoffs this year. I believe it's going to be the 4th straight year, which has not happened in the history. Over 100 years, Montreal Canadiens.
And lastly, guys, one more trivia question for you. Quinn Hughes became the 3rd fastest defenseman on Tuesday night to reach 300 career assists, as he had a 3-assist night. The Canucks beat the Ducks 5-1. That's not particularly notable. Can you name the 2 defensemen? Hughes did it in his 376th NHL game to hit 300 assists. There are 2 defensemen that have done that faster than Quinn Hughes.
Well, since you mentioned Gretz, I'm going to guess Coffee.
He is not one of them.
Is Bobby Orr one of them?
Bobby Orr is one of them.
Well,
Bobby
that's
Orr's gonna
usually
be one.
the one all the time,
He's the
right?
fastest, 346. He did it in
Who's the
30
other one,
fewer
Sean?
games. I will give you a hint.
Oh, Sean gets a hint.
Well, because you
I
got
was
the
gonna
first
guess.
one.
I was gonna guess Erik Karlsson.
Okay, he's American. That's your hint.
Brian
Can't be
Leetch.
Kevin Hatcher, can it?
No.
No. Okay.
Is it
Oh,
Brian
how about
Leetch?
Leachy?
Brian Leetch,
All
very
right.
good. 368 career games to get to 300 assists. Very good, boys. I knew you'd get that quickly.
Sean didn't get any.
That is our NHL news and notes for a Wednesday. We hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us at DLLS Stars. There's an underscore there on Twitter and X. And of course, the overall at DLLS_sports, our full group, which has Mavs, Rangers, Cowboys, of course, Stars. Thanks for watching. And these great DLLS shirts.